This is one of the green roof containers. I was previously using this as a lid on one of the bathtub wormeries on the allotment, but I'm doing some sort of development with this with different containers and things. I've taken it away from the allotment. I've got this at home at the moment, and there you can see there's the soil feeding station on top, and then that covers this cut down container. I'm using this as a feeding station, so it's a bit of an experiment really. But what I'm doing here is I'm layering in just leaves as a source of carbons. You can see there's a few worms in here already. And then I'm putting food scraps in this. But what I wanted to do is make this much deeper and then use that same sort of system to add material. But it's probably not going to work this time, but what I noticed previously when I was doing this, I should really take that out and put it into a container. I don't normally disturb these once they're set up. It's just I'm trying to get the video just to see what exactly is going on inside. So you can see there's a reasonable layer of leaves on here. So I'll take away a lot of that. There's a number of worms in there already, which is quite good to see. So you can see this is more recognisable kitchen scraps. And there's not any worms in that. Although saying that, look, he's really vigorous. He's thrashing around. But what I tend to notice, there was lots of large mature worms and not so many smaller worms. But I suppose that's because it's the fresh material on top. So I'll take this away. And this is already quite dark and quite composted. So that's a nice bit of worm action going on in there. So you've got a whole apple there. Another whole apple. Yeah, so you've got smaller worms. Obviously the smaller worms are in the more composted material. It's terrific, that. Amazing. Yeah, so there's worms here. Quite small worms, big worms, all kind of worms. What's interesting is that worms actually going into the soil in the surrounding bed through the hole. Yeah, so there's loads of worms in the base there under the apples. But in the other ones I haven't really delved around quite so much as this, so most of the worms are in the lower levels of material where it's breaking down, and then the top layer of material, which is fresh kitchen scraps and leaves, there's not an awful lot going on. Obviously with this one, this is going to be disturbed, so there'll be more worms sort of throughout the material. But what I thought was quite nice is obviously in autumn when the leaves fall, it just gives you a chance just to put the leaves straight on here, clean those up from paths and when you sort of tidy up, and then you can lift the hatch and drop those straight in, and then the cover just goes on top. So I'll tip that material back in. So what I already wanted to do is make this container much taller, so it's more of a tower, and then the lid will just nestle down on top of that. Obviously this has been aerated a bit, so it's a bit more disturbed. So that lid will just sit on like so. So you can see the feeding station is quite low. I wanted to raise it up to here, just so it gives you an increased depth, and quite like the interest of having the extra height as well, rather than just a flat green roof. But I haven't harvested any of these yet. I've just been continually adding material to these feeding stations, but it's good. It's a nice system, and I like the fact that these trays are just reclaimed trays, and I'm just using those as the lids. So you can literally lift that off, get your leaves, plop it on there, get your kitchen scraps, mix that between. But what I'd say is I really want the container to be around about that height, and then bank this material up to it. So when you do harvest this, you get a much more generous amount of material, but there'll already be enough materials in there to really replant another one of these containers. So it's quite good. So you're composting in the container itself, and generating material for the next sort of year as well.